Welcome to Part 4 of the Iowa State University Writing and Media Center's webinar on integrating source material. This video will address how to combine strategies and apply concepts we introduced earlier. So if you haven't watched the videos for Parts 1, 2, and 3, I recommend that you do that first. If you've watched our videos for Parts 1, 2, and 3, you've had the opportunity to practice all three essential methods for integrating source material: paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting. Keep all three in mind as you organize your source material, take notes, and begin writing. You may want to summarize, you may want to paraphrase, you may want to quote. Writers who are skilled at integrating sources move fluidly among these three strategies. In this video, we'll look at some possible ways to combine these strategies before we practice recognizing and avoiding plagiarism. Here's our sample source passage again with pagination noted. Pause the video if you'd like to review it. Otherwise, we'll move on. All right, here's an example of how you might combine multiple strategies. You may want to integrate quotations within your paraphrase. This is a strong example of these two strategies well synthesized. Stone does not argue that recognizing rights of the natural environment would prevent humans from using or benefiting from the environment at all. Stone distances himself from this idea by characterizing the notion that no one should be allowed to cut down a tree as silly. Even people, Stone points out, have limited rights. Capital punishment, for instance, limits a person's right to continue living. U.S. law recognizes rights of corporations. However, the Fifth Amendment, which guarantees the right to not incriminate oneself, does not apply to corporations. Minors have rights, yet young people gain more legal rights, such as the right to vote upon reaching age 18. Stone thus proceeds by analogy to explain that recognizing rights of trees does not entail granting them unlimited rights or even identical rights to humans or other environmental objects. Okay, notice that the quoted language fits neatly into the grammar of the surrounding sentence. Remember to cite your source anytime you use information from it, whether you're quoting, summarizing, or paraphrasing. In the paraphrased section here, the writer credits the source by using signal phrases and parenthetical citations. Keeping in mind that paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting are strategies that can be combined, let's apply what we know about using sources ethically and effectively in order to recognize plagiarism and avoid it. First, let's be clear about what plagiarism is so that we know how to avoid it. The Office of Student Conduct here at Iowa State University defines plagiarism as a form of academic misconduct in which you represent someone else's words or ideas as your own. That definition comes from the Plagiarism Resource Guide, available under Resources at knowthecode.dso.iastate.edu. I encourage you to check out this valuable resource. Now that you know how to use sources ethically, you can think ahead about how to avoid plagiarism. Let's look at some examples of less than effective source use and decide how to improve them. Here's our source quote again, followed by a less than perfect attempt to use it in writing. So can you spot the problem here? Now is a good time to pause the video to examine the problems you see and think about how you would correct them. You may want to draft a new version of the quote integration here for practice. Okay. The language of this paragraph is much too similar to the language of the original source. Remember, changing the words is not the same thing as paraphrasing effectively. Minor changes, such as the changes made to this first sentence here, aren't enough. So this attempted paraphrase begins saying that the natural world should have rights does not equal anything as ridiculous as not allowing anyone to cut a tree down. That language is nearly identical to what the source says. Now, to say that the natural environment should not have rights is not to say anything as silly as that no one should be allowed to cut down a tree. Here's another example of what not to do. You might want to pause the video now to read what's on the screen, think about the issues you see, and draft an improved version. Okay. The writer here claims credit for an idea that came from the outside source. That's definitely plagiarism, representing someone else's idea as our own. Also, as you can see, there's no citation here, no mention of the outside source at all. Here's another example of what not to do. You may want to pause the video again at this point to identify problems with this example, think about how to correct them, and draft a stronger version. Okay. Again, the citation is missing. There is no parenthetical citation, no mention of the outside source at all. The writer actually quotes the source without crediting the source. The writer also presents a key idea from the source as an original thought. Now, it's true that the source never states this idea in these exact words. Different categories of people have different sets of rights. Still, this is an idea that comes from the source. It's not the writer's own idea, so it should definitely be cited. The writer's original wording here makes this a successful paraphrase, which should be cited, but not an original idea. Let's review what we've learned about using source material. Skilled writers fluidly integrate the methods of using source material that we discussed in the first 3 videos: paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting. Remember, your own language should be distinct from that of the source. Use quotation marks anytime you use language from the source, and always cite the source, whether you're paraphrasing, summarizing, or quoting. Good news, if you're consistently using the strategies we've practiced for paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting, you won't have to worry too much about plagiarism. Ethical source use prevents unethical source use. Of course, if you're ever not sure about a particular issue, check with your instructor. Thank you for watching this webinar on integrating source material produced by the Writing and Media Center at Iowa State University. We would love for you to schedule a consultation with us at any time. Remember, we're here for you, whether you'd like to discuss effective paraphrasing, quote integration, grammar, different citation styles, polishing your paper, or any other aspect of the writing process. You can schedule a consultation by going to www.wmc.dso.iastate.edu, or you can call us at 515-294-5411. Thanks again for watching. We hope to see you at the WMC.